It is good that there is as much requirement to make sure that we don't provide misleading statements, and we do our best to ensure that the information that we provide is informative, but the hard one is to make sure it's understandable for everyone as well. A lot of what I present in this statement and this presentation has been covered in a series of announcements to the exchange over the last 4 or 5 months, and they're listed on page 3 of the announcement, which can be found on our website. Just quickly to say what Thunderlara is doing in coming months. The most relevant things are obviously related to Red Boar. We've just completed the resistivity and magnetics downhole EM surveys at some of the recently drilled holes at Red Boar and at some of the old holes as well. I just want to make one quick comment about downhole EM, because it's clear that a lot of people believe that it may be an almost infallible tool for finding sulfide resources, and that's not the case. One of the things that we do need to know is downhole EM is about the measure of conductivity. It's the way that a current flows through the rock. If it's massive sulfide, except sphalerite, which doesn't conduct, which is zinc sulfide, but if it's copper sulfide and the grains are touching, you will get a conductive response and you will get an EM response. The work that we've done into assessing the conductivity of the sulfides that we're seeing at Red Boar recently has indicated that it is only 10% conductive of what you'd expect 80% chalcopyrite to be. So we aren't expecting to see the standout downhole EM responses for conductors. And they're also confused around Red Boar because there's so much black shell nearby as well, which is one of the consummate best conductors you'll find in the geological world, and it confuses things because it is such a good responder. However, resistivity and magnetics are very, very important, and they will be included as part of the tools to establish the future drill targets. Results are just coming in, so October we're looking at getting that interpretation, put in a new program of work, looking to try and get some seismic surveys done. Originally we were hoping that was October. We're working with Sandfire to try and share costs on the mobilization of those surveys. They may be delayed for a month or so, but that's not material or not massively important to what we're doing right at the moment. The next stage, 3,300 metres drilling up at Alamba should start in October as well. That's just currently being prepared. And as we put the new programme of work in for follow-up at Red Boar, we're hoping that in October, November we'll get the Red Boar follow-up programme. Can't give you metres yet because that depends on the work that we do with the analysis of the downhole surveys and the geology and the recent results. So basically good news flow between now and the end of the year from both Red Boar, Alamba and possibly Carrara Well as well. 318 million shares in issue, market cap with 12.5 cents, about 40 million. We had 1 million at the end of June. We raised 7.5 in July. We've still got 1 million to come in from the sale of the Thunderball uranium assets. So we're roughly about 7 million in the bank at the moment. So we are well funded to do the work we need to do. We're not come issue. We've got another $1 million coming in next year. Shareholders, Ragged Range is Phil Crabb, who is the founder of Thunderlara and our current chairman. Chin nominees are a number of very supportive individuals, high net worths, who have been long-standing supporters of Phil and his companies. Norilsk is legacy issue. Troker is broker out of Perth, and Grandor is high net worth in Sydney, and who is also friendly. The real message there, top 20 hold 42%, board and management about 18%, but parties friendly to us and to the board are probably in the order of about 30%, something of that order. And the interests that the board and management holds are all shares that we've bought. We paid hard cash for those. There's no freebies. A lot of experience through the sector here, through the 5 principal executives within the structure, covering a range of different activities. 4 main project regions, although that's the one that's causing the main interest at the moment, and that's the one I'll focus on. We hold 90% of Red Boar and 90% of the Carrara Well project in the north. The most significant achievement probably this year to date has been the conclusion of the discussions and the dispute with Bill Richmond, the prospector who previously held Red Boar, and that was concluded on 21st of March when we ended up moving to 90%. He retains 10% free carried through to decision to mine, and we also gave him 10% free carried in Carrara Well, plus some shares and some cash, but that allowed us to get back to work at Red Boar. The Carrara Well tenement to the north, about 5 k's north of Red Boar, The interesting thing here, the area in white is being mapped as granite. This has been done in more detail in previous presentations, but that section, north-northwest to south-southeast, it has the potential to deliver a completely new concept geologically that our geologists came up with. If I look here, the plutonic mine up there is a 6 to 8 million ounce gold mine that was found as what's called a tectonic window, which is granites were overthrust, the erosion exposed the Archean rocks beneath that, and they then found 6 to 8 million ounces. So the model that we're looking at is that when you form an ocean basin, you have granites to the one side, which is to the north of that previous slide, the ocean to the right, and you get growth faults, and the sulfides come up the growth faults, and then when that stops and you get compression, in other words, you get the ocean, the tectonic plates crunching together, granites being brittle will thrust over the top, sediments get folded, and sulfides get redeposited, remobilized, and repositioned into fold locations. That all stops, you get erosion, and what you're seeing then is the possibility that when you look at the surface, which is that white area I pointed out on the earlier slide, could be like just here. You're seeing granite at the surface, but it could be that underneath it is a huge range of the folded sediments with the possibility of sulfides being in those horizons as well underneath that. It's valid because we see it actually happening 20 k's north at Plutonic. It's never been tested to my knowledge, and it's part of what we want to do to test the potential for the Carrara well to hold a significant upside along the same lines as DeGrussa and the Red Boar mineralization. Red Boar itself is only 2 kilometres by 1 kilometre, so it's 2 square kilometres. It's a granted mining license. It is literally 200 metres from the top corner of our tenement to the surface trace of where conductor 5 is. So those the four ore bodies, DeGrussa conductors 1, 3, 4 and 5, that's physically where they're located. And as you can see, if you were to slide those across onto the tenement here, you could fit them 20 or 30 times into our tenement. The whole of the Golden Mile in Kalgoorlie would fit within that tenement if it were a gold province just there. So what we're really saying is, although Red Boar prospect, the Red Boar mining lease is small, only 2 square k's, it's large enough, it's all that's needed to find something, and it has a real benefit because it focuses you on exactly what you need to explore to find things if they're there. All the drilling that was done historically around here was on the assumption that we had another conductor ore body, and the drilling proved basically that that wasn't the case, so there had to be something different. That zone there is essentially just there. It's right in the core of Red Boar. It is only, as you'll see, about 40, 50, 70 metres across and maybe 50 metres north-south, so it's deemed to be pretty small. A lot of criticism that what we've done is drilled out the deposit. Basically, we mined the deposit by drilling it, and also that all these holes are directors' holes. We know what's going to be there, so they're all directors special in order to get the share price up. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'll explain why, if people take that view, why they should understand the commercial realities of how you explore for high-grade material. Our first hole that was tested down here was hole 4, and then 5 was only 5 metres to the east, and then 9, and then 71 was the one that was drilled after that, a bit further over to the east as well. This is what we got out of hole 9, at 28 metres from surface. And this isn't 250 metres vertical, this is 28 metres. 7 metres of massive chalcopyrite, 28% copper with a gram gold in that material and about an ounce of silver. That is direct shipping ore grade. Direct shipping ore means that all you need to do to it is dig it up, crush it, screen it. You don't have to send it through a flotation plant or anything else. You can sell that stuff if you want to and if you find enough of it to a party on that basis alone. So it's got immense value in its own right. Not trying to say that that's what we're going to mine or anything at the moment, but it's worth bearing in mind why this stuff needs to be followed closely. Don't want to lose it. Since April, when we started drilling again, we've drilled 9 diamond holes and 14 RC holes, so about 23 holes. One of the diamond holes in the northwest corner was a stratigraphic hole, so I'm not going to include that. But as you can see, these are all the intercepts out of those, what are effectively 22 holes in the last 5 months. that are over 5 grams. That's just the intercepts over 5 grams. These are sort of results that people would kill for, particularly when you've got 2 high-grade intercepts, 7 metres at 28%, then 4 metres underneath it at 28%, drilled from a different direction. Weren't expecting to see that. That second one, hole 75, actually goes 7 grams gold, as well as an ounce silver. So what we're seeing in the system is gold, silver, and copper, gold, silver, basically. It's the value metal assemblage. Really important to remember that, and also to look at hole 71, which was the one on the right, which proved the side of the pipe. Again, this is all in the announcement, so I won't go into that in detail. When we first found this pipe, this is what we thought we might have. We had hole 9 was the massive sulfides of 28% over 7 metres. That was hole 4, the first one. We needed to drill to the east to see what the profile of this pipe was, whether it was like that or like that with more sulfide. I suspected that what was going to happen was something in the middle, and that's what proved to be the case. Hole 71, which is the one I just pointed out to you, was the one that demonstrated that what we had was that sort of pipe profile, which indicates a true width of something in the order of 4 metres for this material, is what we're indicating from what we've seen to date. And as I say, that hole 71 ended up 9 metres at 6% copper, 3.5 grams gold, and 7 grams silver, including 2 at 18 copper. So that was important that we get that hole. And what it showed, and this is why it's important to follow these drill holes, simple maths. If you've got a circular pipe that is about 2 metres radius, which is what we suspect, then surface area here is about 12.6 metres squared. If you've got 100% chalcopyrite, then you've got 35% copper. That's just how chalcopyrite's built up. So if you've got 28% copper in your assays, you've basically got 80% chalcopyrite. What we saw here is the balance is magnetite, so you're getting 20% magnetite, 80% chalcopyrite. Working out how heavy that is, just doing the weighted arithmetic, you find out the bulk density of the rock in that pipe is basically 4.4 tonnes per cubic metre. What it means is that every metre of this rock, of this pipe, weighs about 55 tonnes. So a 5 metre interval, if you drill 5 metres away, what you're doing is drill a 100 metre RC hole, spending $150 all up. It's costing you 15 grand to prove another 5 metres of this material, which is direct shipping grade. And if you sit there and work out what that relates to, when you've got 28 grams per tonne, 28% copper, it means in each 5 metres, or each metre of that material, you've got 15 tonnes of copper, you've got 12 ounces of gold, you've got 55 ounces of silver. Now, if you were to sit there and look at a gold play, and I were to sit there and say that you had a load of gold in the east, say in Bendigo or something like that, it was 1 metre by 2 metres and extended 5 metres, and it was grading 30 grams per tonne, an ounce a tonne, you'd want to follow that closely. Do the numbers on this. This is significantly higher value than that. You don't want to lose this stuff, which is why we drill on 5 metre spacing, and they're not directors' holes. They're spending 15 grand to try and generate something in excess of $500,000 theoretical potential value per 5 metres. That stuff you do. You follow that. A couple of cross sections. What we're seeing on the pipe here doesn't come out as clear as I like, but basically what was trending to the southwest, and then it seems to be steepening. And some of these do go almost through the guts, but that's part of understanding what the morphology is. So that one is the cross-section 1, and cross-section 2 appears also to be getting deeper and following that at depth. We've done a lot more magnetics and mapping, and that's where all the drill collars are on the ground at the moment as well. The new targets that we'd identified when we found the magnetics and the magnetite and chalcopyrite that existed in these pipes was suggesting that all these more discrete anomalies here were magnetic anomalies. That one's exposed at surface, that's why it stands out so much, and the others needed to be followed up. We've drilled some of them. Most importantly, holes 64 and 65, which are these two down here, were the ones that came up with some mineralization that was copper, gold and silver. Not to the same values yet that we found at Red Boar, but they proved the model that suggests that these pipes exist to the west and elsewhere within the tenement. So what we're seeing is we ended up with a deeper as well, which is what you'd expect. It's a more subtle surface anomaly, so you'd expect it might represent something buried. And that's what appears to be the case. at 66 to 75 metres, 9 metres at 0.5% copper, bit of gold and bit of silver, with 1 metre at 2.5. So this is really positive for follow-up. What it's now looking like when we map and put together everything we have to date is a profile of a contact that's seemingly following like that. And you see the morphology of that appears to be very, very similar, including the kinks, as we're seeing up at Sandfire itself, where there's a lot of east-west control, we know that. So we've got to follow this thing along. Just here as well, previous drilling here had come up with magnetite with chalcopyrite in it, so we need to follow that up in more detail too. Red Bore itself, this may be something we need to drill deeper. The hole we drilled there didn't go as deep as we'd liked, it met drilling problems, so we need to do that again. But this is really significant. So we've got a lot of potential still to follow up here. And what we're seeing now is the possibility that these are the 3 pipes, two definite we've shown, plus one other possibility that needs to be tested further at the Red Bore Gossan area itself. As you can see, strong magnetic image that are magnetic signal because it's an exposed pipe. Weaker magnetic signal at that holes 64 and 65, as I just showed, where the thing is buried, so we're seeing it buried at depth. Some of these other anomalies that we're seeing, magnetic anomalies that need to be followed up, could well represent others. This is the big picture. What could it be down here? We don't know yet. It could be a potential chalcopyrite magnetite bearing body which is along the lines of a porphyry, low tonnage, high grade. Most geologists will sit there and say this is not found in this sort of setting, but what I'd respond to that is that if we always thought that every single occurrence has to fit into a known model, you'd never find a new model. The fact that it's never been found before and never been explained in this particular style doesn't mean it can still exist, doesn't mean it's a valid target, doesn't mean it needs to be tested. It does. But a scenario that also could count on here, which would still fit in with that, is that there could be a deep-seated VMS, a bit along the lines of a degrusser, a second degrusser or something, that hasn't yet been identified in either magnetics or anything else because it is deep-seated, but with the amount of faulting and structural dislocation that's happened through this tenement area, you could have remobilization of the sulfides that then get squirted up to form what we're seeing in these pipes or whatever they are, certainly up these structural intersections, this structural control. So, big targets to follow up. We need to follow these high-grade, DSO-grade, high-value metalliferous occurrences as closely as we can and make sure we don't lose them. And if that means we drill on 5-metre spaces, that's what we're going to do. And as a shareholder, irrespective of the CEO, that's what I'd want to see happening as a shareholder. So if you do hear people saying it's all drill, it's just director's specials, then have a look at the metal values and what it actually means. Do the numbers and work out if that really makes sense, or if you'd rather we go 200 metres away and miss it, come into 100 metres, miss it, come into 50 metres, miss it, end up back at 5 metres where we're starting at the moment to make sure we keep following it because of the value it adds. We're not just Red Bore. We've got Dulgunna still to look at. We've got a Lamba that we're going to start doing more work at in October. Little Mount Isa, zinc-based metal targets. Native copper up at Frank Hill and Azura. Free carried nickel exposure at Keller Creek with Panoramic. And uranium over at Nalia Basin, that's something that we are holding on to at the moment, but really we'd be happy to find a joint venture partner because uranium is still a very, very hard game to be in. So that's Pine Creek. That's more detail on the Lamba, Sophie Downs, Nalia Basin. This is most important again, just reaffirming, we are finding value. We are finding some immense results that most companies out there would really love to see in their hits as well, particularly when we're not talking 300 metres below surface, we're talking 30, 40 metres below surface. So it only makes sense to make sure you don't lose them, you follow them closely. And that, as I say, is the work programme. Lots of news flow coming out over the next few months. It takes time to get the programme of work approved through the departments, as they've got to go through their process and tick all the boxes. We've got plenty happening. And I hope you all continue to watch what we're doing, because we're very proud of what we've achieved to date. And we are very, very happy and grateful for the support that we've received from the market to date. And as I say, we're ready to go. Thank you all very much.